All right, traders, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian Primehart, Strategic Trade Group, and this is your end of day recap for Monday, the 26th. So we're entering, of course, the last week of the quarter as well as the month, and we've got some volatility that's creeping into the market. So first things first, risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Please read the full risk disclaimer here. So what I'm going to talk about in today's video is, of course, some of that volatility that we saw today, and try to determine if this is the normal course of action that we're seeing at the end of the quarter, or if there's a bigger sell-off that is coming. And to be honest, I don't have the answer fully to that question, but I definitely have some things to watch. And we will go through, as always, some of the observations, and, with the goal of, by the end of this video, you can kind of, come up with a little bit of strategy or a little bit of a thought process to try to handle some of this this seasonal move that we're seeing at this point. So let's talk about where we are in the indices first, and then we'll talk about where we're seeing those rotations, and if you think that this is quite normal, or if it's something that is bigger that is going on here. So, of course, looking at the S&P, a couple notables that we see here is that we are now pushing down into the 20-day moving average, which is a normal, I think, pullback. We did get extended here. We know that, looking at things like the RSI, we talked about that quite a bit a couple of weeks ago, that we were in overbought territory. We were there for a little bit, and we did get a little bit more overbought probably than we should have. And at this point, we're pulling back to the 20-day moving average. And if you look at some of the areas that were outperforming versus underperforming, I think that you could probably tell most of what we saw is just kind of a rotation out of some of the big winners this year, which to me, and here we are with the Qs, which again kind of had another failure for the day, because right in the beginning of the day, we did try to push higher. That was rejected pretty early, and then it was just basically a continuous move down for the day, a little bit of a pause midday, and then a flush further down here at the end of the day. So Qs, where are we in terms of support? Well, so now finally comes the test, right? And we lost the 5-day moving average, which is the super short term trend, and now we're into the 20-day moving average. So I think this is a bigger test, and it's going to be pretty interesting to see if this is going to hold up here in the next couple of days. That's what I would be watching, and I would be watching, here as well. You could see, the Qs coming into the 20-day moving average and this support in here. So that could hold, but it also could be regained. And here's what I mean by that. If you look at the 1-hour chart, I've been quoting this quite a bit the last couple of days, because you could really find some interesting observations and some levels to kind of watch, and observations regarding the trend. So if you look at what we've got here on my charts, of course, I've got value areas that are lit up for each particular week, which give you the sense of whether or not you're trending up or going sideways or beginning to trend down. So looking at that first, and then I will zoom out, notice that we got into the value area just in the beginning of the day, and then we've been rejected. So this is the first time in a few weeks that we've been sitting now below the value area, the value area for the week, right? So for example, last week we spent the whole week, the Qs spent the whole week inside value. The week before that, the week above value. The week prior to that, we tested the bottom of value and bounced, right? The week before that, we were above value. You kind of get what I'm saying here. I have to go back several weeks to see when we've actually started to creep below the value area. So that's for this week. That's a change, and that we know that in the short term, we've got a change on our hands. It's different than what we've seen in the last several weeks. And even if you go further back, another observation is this 200 period moving average, right? We spent some time, I think here was probably the last time that we were below value, and that was all the way back in April. So, and then we recovered, and since then we've been basically for the better part since then, we've been above this 200 period moving average. Now, it hasn't been perfect, right? And that's why last week was a little bit tricky too, because we've seen a couple of these dips under the 200 period moving average, which is this big, thick white line. And every time that's happened, we've seen a nice bounce back, right? Quick bounce back here after a little bit, another, violation of the 200 period moving average, but a move right back above. Here we spent a little bit more time. This was what, 2-3 weeks ago, and then we bounced above. Last week was tricky too, because we went below it, we got back above, and you might have thought for the short term, like, hey, this is what we want to see, similar to some of these other ones. But then, of course, we saw the end of the week and on Friday, a move back below, which was not a good place to be. Followed by today, and now we're sitting below here. So what this means in terms of how I deal with this in my trading is I just kind of back off, right? And I take some trades off and I move more into cash, and I just don't fight with it, right? And we'll wait, and we'll see if this week we can kind of push back above here, or if we're going to spend some time down here, right? And nobody has the answer to that question. So what do you do, whenever, and that's, by the way, that's really how technical analysis can really help you, right? In my opinion, right, especially trend trading, there are levels that I want to be long versus, and then when things change, I want to reduce my risk, and that's it. I was reading a post over the weekend, and I apologize because I don't remember who put out the post, but they were basically saying that, agreeing and mentioning a couple of these points about technical analysis. It's not predictive, right? There's nothing that's going to tell you, like, okay, we're going to go, and a lot of times I think that's what newer traders are looking for. They're looking for the answer of what's going to happen for the week, or they're looking for some type of like warm and comfy feeling that, hey, we're now going to go ahead and trend and move to new highs. In my experience, and as long as I've been doing that, and how I've kind of changed my trading over the years, is that really what I try to understand is just what the market is doing, and then try to be on the right side of the market. So what we're looking at here, and what I've kind of gone through over the last couple of minutes, is just the fact that it looks like we're changing here a bit. And the next question is, well, how long are we going to change for? And you look at the week's events, and we, this quarter end that we have, or second quarter end, is really how I should be phrasing it. Usually what happens is there is some type of portfolio rebalance. What I've heard, and I can't confirm this because I'm not on a portfolio desk. I used to be on a Delta One trading desk back in my institutional trading days, so I would have those numbers. But I understand just the principles behind it is that there's going to be some rebalance out of stocks and into bonds, right? And also out of some of these areas that have run up so much this year. Now, that's just going to happen for the next couple of days, because on Friday, it's the end of June. And then on Monday, we move on to a new month where typically there's new money that's put to work. So that's kind of what my feeling is for now, is that, yeah, we could see this further unwinding throughout the week. It doesn't have to be every day this week. Certainly things could change, and this could be a little bit of front running of that, what's going to happen on Friday. But for now, we've lost the lower trend. Now, this may also, kind of looking on the bright side of this, because again, this is just a 1-hour chart. This is very short term in nature, right? The outcome could also be that you might get some really good buying opportunities, but they just may not happen, in the next couple of days, or even once we get into July. It doesn't mean all of a sudden we see a whole bunch of buying, but things could begin to kind of improve again. All right, so this is Qs. Spent a lot of time here, but you could do the same exercise on the S&P chart as well, right? And that's the same thing, like, since not last Friday but the Friday before, we've been trending down, right? Again, short-term stuff. And we have not seen buyers kind of take charge. Again, there's been a couple times, for instance, this morning where buyers try to take control, and same thing towards the end of last week on Thursday, buyers try to take control, but they don't have right now the momentum to do that. So we're in this little bit of a dip or some type of correctional type phrase. I think that we could go down to 43.36 in the S&P. Right. And going back to the Qs, because I didn't mention this, but you've got this red line down here, and that's 354.76. All right. So that's what we've got for the overall market. I thought what was kind of interesting today was the small caps try to take the lead a little bit today, but they got rejected at 182.35, which is where they needed to basically turn back up. So again, where am I getting this level? 182.35. We're using volume at price. And we're coming up with, based on last week's activity, where there's support and resistance. Notice we started the week below value. We came up to test that first level of resistance and got rejected. Right. We tried again a little bit this afternoon, but we didn't get up there that much. So that's kind of the summary for the day. And those are the major themes. Now, of course, there are some other things that went on here for the day, but you could look at, a couple of the leaders. Tesla does look like a head and shoulders on the 1 hour chart, right? So let this, this could come in, right? Because I know this is a stock that a lot of people are looking at, but this could, fill this gap in here, right? That's something that I would be watching for. And, in regards to trading, like, I've been very bullish Tesla, and I'm still going to be bullish long-term Tesla, but short-term, you have to kind of adjust your, or I adjust my opinion based on the price action and what it's doing. And I had a small position left in my trading account in Tesla that I actually wanted to leg into and build, but I'll let the volatility and this head and shoulders pattern play out a bit before I look to re-enter. And I got out of that position this morning based on what I saw. And then of course this one too, NVIDIA, this is still kind of coming in here too after it lost its momentum. So again, this is still, you look back to where the big gap up in earnings, right? And this is just basically taking out this move. So I'm not, I have not been long. I got out of the last trade that I really put on in NVIDIA was in here, and I got out of this. So I will be looking, for a re-entry, but maybe if it gets down to 389, right, that might be a level that could be of interest in the coming days. Again, good to kind of think about these things of like where you might be interested in a name. And again, it needs to kind of come down here and then digest and then start to build back up before I would be interested in it. What I found particularly notable today was the strength in the nat gas names today, right? And you could see nat gas is still moving from last week. I forget what the performance was for last week in nat gas futures, but it was one of the strongest commodities along with wheat last week. And I think this is going to try to move up to this version point of control up here. And there are some names. There's a lot of names that have gotten into downtrends. I tend to look for the names that have managed the best, that may be tied to energy. One of those names that I like is Weatherford, WFRD. And there will be some names that will start looking attractive. But keep in mind, this did not close on the absolute highs either, and is still battling with that trend line. Also, a lot of the metals and mining space. And building construction and things that are of that nature. ATKR had another nice day. That's a name that you've heard me talk about a little bit in here. Home Depot had a nice day today, although this took out an upside level, filled this gap. And usually that's a place that's an overhead supply area. So it might stumble there. AZEK and the flooring companies had a nice day today too. I took some profits. I got long this name on Friday, and I'll just flip this. back. Again, most of these names did not close on the highs, but again, I was able to take 2 targets in this. Why did I take 2 targets in this? Because in this market, where where there's volatility this week, it doesn't matter. For me anyway, the way I kind of think about the market is that, hey, this name was up 3%. I'll take it on a day where most names are down for the day. All right, AOS. I actually put on a starter position in this one. This name broke the value area. So, I mean, this is a pretty clean looking break here. And again, I know where it's not going to work. If it breaks back below inside the value area, I'll abandon the trade. But for now, this is breaking through. And the RSI is also moving nicely in the right direction. So new long for me and a tough tape. Some other names that I'm watching too. Another housing flooring name, Trex, had a nice day. Now, I don't know if this is hurricane type stuff or if it's just, that's, housing is strong. Generac is a name to watch tomorrow. I think this is interesting. I've mentioned this name a couple times over the last few days, but now over its 200-day moving average and trying to do something different. BBY, Bed Bath, not Bed Bath, Best Buy. A lot of people talking about this name. Saw some call activity today, so kind of an interesting move there. A couple other names too that saw, which I started a position in this one, even though it's a little bit early. This is Broadcom. Remember, Broadcom had this big earnings move, regrouped and went higher and has been selling off. So I think I'm a little bit early, but I was really curious to see what somebody's doing buying decent sized calls for this week. I don't know, it could be for the Micron earnings, could be for something else, but bottom line, for more of a technical signal, because I may get stopped out in this trade tomorrow, I would watch this 834 level. It started to kind of move in the right direction, but that end of day selling. So I think that's the only thing that I'm really holding right now in tech. So I have a few other names to go over, but I think that's it for the day. We'll talk about with members. I'll talk about some of the names that are breaking out on multiple time frames. Again, if you look at the list here, these are names that are breaking out on multiple time frames, weekly, daily, 1 hour chart, but they're not super extended. Notice again that there's a lot of industrials. There's also there's some names that are a little bit cheap in regards to valuation as well, right? I've heard that too. I don't know if that's also a theme of what you're going to see, rotations out of names that are maybe a little bit expensive and into some of the cheaper names. Based on today's price action, that kind of looked like some of what we got. This is a really cheap name. This is a life insurance company called Unum Group. Right? This is another name that's very close to breaking out. But look at these names, right? These are more industrial type names. Granger, right? No volatility here, up a nice 1.3% for the day. Snap-on Tools. I think it used to be called Snap-on Tools, but now it's just called Snap-on. It's another one that's breaking out. So again, if you're too top heavy, all growth and looking for that, right? What I try to do for TTG members is kind of point out where there's other areas of strength, right? And that may be trending quite, doing very good things while some of those overcrowded names may be getting rotated out of for now. All right, guys, have a great night. If you're not a member, check us out, TribecaTradeGroup.com, and you can get more of what I'm kind of going over in terms of names that are acting very well while there's other names that are being rotated out of for now. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.